Welcome to the AI Chat podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined by Tamara, who is a seasoned leader with 20 years of experience driving growth and facilitating successful exits for early-stage consumer and enterprise startups. Tamara currently leads the global investment team at Thompson Reuters Ventures, a $100 million strategy fund focused on investing in companies that are forging the future of enterprise technology. She previously led investing and venture capital partnerships in North America and India for M12, which is Microsoft's venture fund. Welcome to the show today, Tamara.
Hey, Jaden. Glad to be here.
Super excited to have you on the show. Something I would love to kind of kick this off with is, asking you a little bit about your background and your journey. Was, venture investing, was this always something that you were interested in? Is this something that you kind of discovered throughout your career? Tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you here.
Yeah, no, I definitely wasn't someone who said, I'm going to go, or I want to be a venture capitalist, or that's the direction I'm going to go.
Okay.
I had done 6 startups, with the last one being sold to Microsoft, but fortunately had, several exits prior. And I think I just was much more addicted to being at a small company and, going through that journey each time. So I think people kind of pushed me into it in a good way. I think I had raised, at one time, I had raised 16 or 17 rounds
Oh my God.
by the time I got into venture. So I'd raised so many rounds, done so many pitch decks, and gone through the exit process so many times that they thought it would be a valuable person to put in the seat on the other side. So I really came into venture as an operator, having that experience. And now after several years, many years, I guess, I think I have both sides of it now. I think I can hopefully pick them well and add value to the founders, to the startups, because it's hard to find somebody who's actually done it and has the empathy for founders, right? That's difficult. If you're just a venture capitalist, although there are a lot of good VCs, I think that there are a lot of empathy. So, but the ones who've really never been in the trenches, it's hard.
Yeah.
Hard to understand.
Yes. So that's super fascinating. And I love that you have that background in startups. Obviously, this was something you are, very good at and you did for a long time. And I think that's definitely going to be helping you pick winners in today's environment. Something that I'd be really curious, just based on your background and what you're doing now. What are some of the kind of key factors that you look for when investing, and specifically in AI-driven kind of enterprise technology companies, right? Like this is a big shift we're seeing today in startups is kind of the integration of AI. So what are some of the key factors that you look for when investing in those companies?
You know what? It doesn't change that much if you're looking for AI or if you're looking for just good companies. Generally speaking, I've invested in SaaS, both on the consumer side and on the enterprise side. So if you think of it from AI, it's always team first. Who came up with this idea? Who developed the tech? And how strong are they, right? And can they, get it to the end game of a venture bet, right? So I think first and foremost, it's the team. And in AI, that might even be more important. I don't know how much more important it can be, because I think it's critical in every company, but the technical skills and the background and the understanding of how to apply AI to whatever problem it is they're trying to solve is pretty important, right? So they've really got to have that, background in machine learning and data science, understanding how to apply that tech.
Okay. Yeah. I think those are some really important elements to look at for sure. So something that I think I'd be curious to pick your brain on as well is, what are some of the areas and maybe like the industries or the niches specifically that you think AI is, and these new AI startups are going to have a big impact in transforming? I believe in your recent talk at AI4, you talked a little bit about finance, but like, what are some other areas and use cases that you think will be particularly exciting or transformative? Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today.
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance, deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale, and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
Yeah, and as the fund for Thomson Reuters, we actually are kind of in three sweet spots. They're all theses that we focus on, and we have solutions in the market in those categories. So legal, which we know there's a big focus in legal AI and legal tech applied, AI applied to legal. Tax, which I talked a little bit about at AI4, and just broadly fintech. But we've seen a lot of, up and coming tech as well in AI. And then we have a big practice in risk and fraud. So that's also an area where applying AI, you get a lot of benefit, right? You can really benefit from having AI applied to large databases and being able to find things you weren't able to find in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super exciting. So I think something that, really brought, I think maybe like Thomson Reuters, because people kind of think of that as like a news organization, maybe off the top of their head, because they see that, the branding. Something that I think caught people off guard and helped people really realize how serious of a player you guys are in this kind of AI and this venture space, specifically, like you mentioned, law being one of the key areas, is an investment earlier this year into Case Text, right? I believe this was an investment. We recently had Jake Heller on the podcast from Case Text talking about it, and really interesting. I'd be curious if at all you were involved, or if you have any insights into that deal, or I guess maybe the focus in law and what that kind of signals from Thomson Reuters.
Yeah, so Thomson Reuters is set up so our strategy team actually runs M&A, and that is the same umbrella that our venture fund is under, although they are independent. Okay. That said, I would, like any other corporate fund, your venture investments kind of become an M&A pipeline. Yeah. But most corporate venture funds only acquire about 10% of what they invest in. So it's not mandated or definitive that if you invest, you'll get acquired. Right. So I was not directly involved per se in that transaction. Of course, I knew about it and what was happening. And certainly because our team looks at a lot of legal AI tech. We were certainly part of diligence and looking at the tech and understanding what they had. Mm-hmm. And, there may have been one person on my team that was pretty involved. So yes, we are very familiar with that. And we really believe what they're doing from, an AI perspective is leading in legal tech overall. Mm-hmm. That said, so that was a outright acquisition, right? So we own that now. That acquisition is done. They are part of TR, and we're super excited about it. We still invest in tech that we believe in and we believe is going to be next generation as well. And so, one of the other companies we invested in, same category, different application, is Spellbook. Okay. Out of Canada. I think they're the leading drafting solution today in AI, and given their head start, they may be the leading solution forever. They're pretty far ahead, and the technology is amazing. So we will acquire, we will invest, and I think our strategy is we're going to do both, and we're developing our own tech as well. Mm-hmm. So we're the technology that TR has had and sold for, many years and improved upon is all based on ML and AI. So we're just moving a lot of that tech to what is the next generation. And, much of that is shipping soon as well. So I think we'll have, build, buy, and invest.
Very cool. Very exciting. Yeah, I honestly see a lot of really exciting things coming out of Thomson Reuters, and really cool that you get to be part of that. Something I would love to get your perspective on, especially having been a founder yourself and kind of been on that side of it as well. What are some common pitfalls you feel like perhaps today some AI companies are falling into, and maybe how can they avoid those?
Well, mostly on the investing side, I think it's the same thing that happened in 2021, right? Over raising. I read something earlier this week, and I should have written it down. And I didn't realize. I think I was going to bring it up on this podcast, but somebody said bootstrapping is cool again, and I'm like, when was it not cool? The first startup I did was a company called software.com, and no, we didn't sell software. It was actually an email company. So they built the infrastructure to allow for more than 5,000 domains as your email domain. Because if you recall back in the day, you could only have so many email addresses with the same domain. There was a limitation. I believe it was Microsoft's limitation. And software.com, they came up with an amazing solution that allowed large internet service providers to have as many email addresses as they wanted under the same domain.
Very cool.
But what was interesting is it was completely bootstrapped, right? Went public in 99, did extremely well, merged with another company. And so I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean? Bootstrapping is always cool because you're not giving up any of your company. You're maintaining the equity amongst the founders and the employees, what better situation could you have, especially if you know and believe the company is going to be successful. That's not always possible, right? Especially in AI, you do have a lot of expense just in, compute, right? So, I noticed a lot of VCs are offering compute as payment, right? So we'll give you money. We'll also give you, chips, right? I guess they're friends with NVIDIA, so they're able to, go out and offer up compute power, which, if you're a new company and that's something that's really important to you, that's a great option.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great offer. So it's not easy to go bootstrap, especially an AI company, but the less money you take and the more equity you keep, especially early, I think is really important, right? I think over-raising and stepping in and over-raising and stepping into a valuation that is really hard to get to is tough. I mean, yes, there'll be a few companies that can do it. There's always a few, but for those that are going to take a little longer to get there to, you'll get to the point where the valuation is so high, you're going to end up doing a down round. And that's where we're at from 2021.
Yeah.
Many of those companies are either selling or doing a down round because they have no choice, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that's, in AI right now, people are willing to pay up. And while it's good because you don't have to take as much dilution, I would be careful. Take the least amount of money you can take.
I love that. That's interesting because, of course, that's definitely contradictory advice to what some people would say, which is, just get as much as you can. So I think that is really great advice. Something I'd be curious to pick your brain about and ask about is, based off of what you're seeing, like, how do you see kind of AI evolving in the enterprise sector, specifically maybe law and maybe taxes, some other areas you're focused on, but like over the next 5 years, what are some of the shifts and changes you think we're going to be seeing?
I think a lot of the repetitive tasks that can be you can apply AI to them very easily. Those are going to be the first to take advantage of it, right? Because they're low risk. So you can use AI to solve, repetitive problems. So I think, customer support is a good example where you could, replace some of that early stage customer support with AI. I mean, legal is a great example because drafting is a perfect place for you to apply it, right? You're looking at it, but it's giving you examples and taking data that the firm has internally and using it against new contracts. It's interesting because, when Spellbook first came out with their solution last, I guess, October, November, some of the feedback they got when we were talking to them early on was that the early stage lawyers, right, first, second year, you spend a lot of time, senior partners and senior lawyers in the firm spend a lot of time training them and teaching them about the ways of the law firm and how they approach different types of contract drafting and et cetera. But by having this drafting tool, you're actually taking in a bunch of content from your firm, right? So it's building a model around how your firm does it, and it's giving suggestions to that new lawyer on how to, write the best contract, come up with some different alternatives on, getting it done without having to go back and ask somebody at a senior level. So it saves a lot of time from that perspective. And I think it speeds up the training, which I don't think originally was part of the value proposition, right? It speeds up contract drafting. It gets more work done faster. It's more accurate. You have better examples. All of that was kind of the reasoning behind applying AI to drafting, but the learning part of it has turned out to be really great as well. So I think that is interesting. And I think that exact same example applies to tax, right? Tax is even probably.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of switching your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling. Harness the best converting checkout and same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Stop leaving sales on the table. Discover why millions trust Shopify to build, grow, and run their business. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech23.
Going to accept it more because that area, if you think about accountants, there just aren't enough of them, right? There aren't enough new accountants, a lot of accountants retiring and not enough new ones going into the business. So just trying to augment some of the work, I think is going to be pretty important in tax. So those are going to be, I think, easy wins. And then there'll be a lot harder, a lot harder things that people are, more fearful about, and like, is it gonna, give me the right answer? Is it gonna hallucinate? Mm-hmm. In the end, AI is as accurate as its data source. So it really depends on what model, what did the model use to build the model, right? What data source did it use? Not what did the model use? Not even Friday. But that, I think, is really important, right? Because if you're using a closed data source that the data is accurate, you're not going to have an issue with the wrong answer. Mm-hmm. Or you shouldn't, right? Mm-hmm. If you're just scraping the whole internet and asking a question, it's not going to be right all the time.
Yeah. I think that's really insightful, and it's so many exciting things that are happening. And the thing I also tell people a lot, right? Like when people kind of bring up the concern like of inaccuracy in AI models and whatnot is, like there are things that are not perfect today, 100%. This is a very new and like exciting technology. But I think when people discount the power of AI and what it's capable of because of perhaps where it is today, I'm just like, look at how far it's come. Like eventually some of these small things where, it's not perfect at this or that, like those will all get fixed. Those will all get solved.
Yeah.
We've come so far. Now these are some of the small areas. So I think, I see like sometimes people that are like doubters or haters on AI are like, it's just not there yet. I really wouldn't focus on that. I would focus on like what happens when it is perfect, because like that will be a future. So what does that look like? What are the conversations we need to have and whatnot? Something I'm really curious to ask you about. So I know in the past you worked at Microsoft's M12 fund, is it?
M12.
Yeah. And you worked on it was kind of interesting when I was looking into it, on this kind of North America and India kind of sphere. A lot of times I talk to VCs and whatnot, a lot of investment funds are kind of geographically based. So a lot of people that listen to the show might be more so investing into companies based in the United States, for example. I'd be curious from you, like if you have any insights on differences or things to be aware of or things that are interesting about perhaps looking at companies in India or companies in North America. What are some of the strengths in both places?
Yeah. So M12, so we kind of split the fund. So North America and India was about 75% of the fund. And then we had a pretty sophisticated team in Israel.
Okay.
And if you think about Israel and what are they good at? Cybersecurity. So they were super focused on cybersecurity. And M12 made some amazing investments out of Israel in cybersecurity. Great fit, super targeted, made a lot of sense. As far as India went, we were also pretty targeted. It was companies that were that wanted to and needed to face west, right? So great technology it wasn't specific to that region per se, because they were going to turn and face west, because that's where Microsoft could help them. You know, there are a lot of regionally based VCs that are in, you know, the Middle East or India that are looking at tech that's really solving issues in those regions only, and they're not facing west. And that's just a different strategy. It's not the strategy Microsoft had. We are doing the same thing. We're investing globally. I would say 70% of our fund is North America. We've made 2 investments in Europe so far out of the 13 that we've made. And we are looking at Southeast Asia as well, because it's a very big growing area for us. Okay. So we're looking at it, trying to figure out what tech makes sense and where we can help them.
Okay, very cool. Very interesting. Yeah, it's exciting. There's so many different, you know, like you mentioned, Israel, for example, really strong on cybersecurity. It's kind of cool to see different geographic locations that really excel at certain things and kind of looking at different strengths around the world there. Something I'd love to, you know, ask you about is for, you know, aspiring entrepreneurs today that are working on AI startups and working on, you know, building out some of these solutions. What is some advice you feel like you could give to them as they're kind of looking at, you know, building out these new AI companies?
One, they need to differentiate, right? What problem are they trying to solve? I think that there's a little bit of pushback and people saying, well, they're just building a little tool on top of OpenAI. I don't know if it matters what LLM you're using, but be prepared to explain why, right? Because you should be able to, what if another LLM is better in the future, right? Is open source going to develop, you know, LLMs that are better than OpenAI or Cohere or Anthropic? Who knows? Right now, no. But so they need to be flexible and understand why they're using that model, and then understand the data source, right? And so we're, you know, you really have to understand where you're pulling the data from in order to solve the problem, to make sure you don't have the problems that, you know, people have referenced over and over again. Because I completely agree with you completely. First of all, AI, I do think it's ready right now, and it's only going to get better. And every company will use AI to some extent, if not a lot, right? And I think it's just a change in the way we're going to apply technology going forward.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Tamara, thank you so much for coming on the AI Chat podcast and sharing your insights. This has been a phenomenal conversation, super, super enlightening. If people are interested in reaching out to you, perhaps founders or other people, what's a good way for them to get in contact with you or, you know, Thompson Reuters Venture Fund?
Yeah, so it's just tamara.steffens@tr.com is my email. You can email me directly. LinkedIn is always great. LinkedIn. And I was going to say Twitter, but I guess I have to say X. It's just at Tamara Steffens.
Okay, fantastic. I will leave some links in the show notes to that. But once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. To the listener, thank you so much for tuning in to the AI Chat podcast. Make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts and have a fantastic rest of your day.